Chapter 9. Jade's high-pitched scream filled the car. Dina swallowed hard, fighting back the tremors of fear that shook her body. We're still moving, she realized. We're still speeding through the darkness. The darkness. Why had everything suddenly gone dark? Because the other two cars had collided, their headlights no longer sweeping over Dina's car. She raised her eyes to the rearview mirror, saw the car and truck nose to nose, saw the driver stepping out. They're okay, Dina realized. And we're okay. We're not hit. We're moving toward home. We got away. This time. They settled into Jade's living room. The house felt warm and comforting. Jade's parents had gone to bed. Jade made mugs of steaming hot chocolate. Dina sank into a soft armchair and let out a long sigh of relief. She could still feel the bumping of the car, still hear the crash of metal and glass. Who was he? Chuck asked, shaking his head. Why did he try to kill us? It wasn't a he, Dina revealed, holding the white mug in her lap, letting it warm both hands. Huh? Jade and Chuck uttered in unison. It was a woman, Dina told them. I saw her. She had long hair. We have to call the police, Jade said softly, very pale, her expression still tight with fear. We can't, Chuck replied quickly. They'll ask us what we were doing back at that house. They'll accuse us of looking for trouble. Then we have to tell our parents, Dina insisted. No way, Chuck replied firmly. They'll ask the same questions. They'll ground you and Jade forever. I'm out of here next week, but you two will be in major trouble. Dina caught the thoughtful expression on Jade's face. I think I know who it was, Jade said. Tell me again what the driver of the car looked like. I saw her for only a second, Dina said. She had blondish hair, a pale face, but maybe that was just from the headlights. Then I know who it was, Jade replied, and I'm positive it's the same person who's making the frightening calls. You're kidding. Dina lowered the white mug to the coffee table. How could you possibly know that? Think about it, Jade said, tossing back her hair. Who is the one person who knows what happened last year and had a key to the Farberson house? Farberson's girlfriend, Dina exclaimed. Right, Jade said. But it's a year later. Why is she at the house? Dina demanded. And why would she come barreling over the front lawn to try to chase us off? I don't know, Jade admitted. Then her eyes narrowed as she added, Don't you think we ought to ask her? Whoa, wait a minute, Dina went on. It couldn't be her. The person who made the calls was a man, or have you forgotten that? Anyone can disguise her voice, Jade reasoned. In fact, I read about a little electronic gadget that can make a man sound like a woman or a woman sound like a man. But why would Farberson's girlfriend call us? Why would she do any of those things? Only one way to find out, Jade replied. She opened the drawer in the oak table beside the couch and pulled out the shady-side phone book. Now, what was her name? Dina shut her eyes and thought, Linda? Linda something, right? Morrison, Jade added. Linda Morrison. I remember now from the restaurant. She opened the phone book to the M's and ran her finger down the column. L.M. Morrison on Pike Street. That's her. I recognize the address. You mean you're just going to call her? Dina gasped. No. I thought it would be better to visit her and ask in person, Jade replied, raising her eyes from the phone book. Are you crazy? Cried Dina. She just tried to run us off the road. If we go to her house, it will show we're not afraid of her, Jade replied. She'll know, we know what she's doing, and she'll have to stop. Jade slammed the phone book shut. How about tomorrow? Chapter 10. The next morning, Dina awoke to the sound of shouting from downstairs. For a moment, she thought she was still dreaming. But then she remembered everything that had happened the day before. Oh no, she thought, burying her head under the pillow. Chuck and my parents are at it again. Couldn't Chuck try to get along with them for 5 minutes? Maybe I should stay in bed all day, she thought. But she pulled herself up, washed and brushed her teeth, then slipped into her robe. The shouting grew louder as Dina made her way down the stairs. As long as you're living here, you'll follow the house rules, she heard her father scream. Just get out of my face. Stop trying to run my life, Chuck screamed back. Dina heard a loud pounding sound. Then Chuck shouted, Oh, forget it. Once again, the kitchen door slammed so hard that the entire house shook. When Dina entered the kitchen, both of her parents were staring at the kitchen door. Through the window, she could see Chuck disappearing around the side of the house. Good morning, Dina said in a small voice. Oh, good morning, dear, said her mother, chewing her bottom lip. More trouble with Chuck, huh? Where'd he go? Dina asked. Who knows, grumbled her father. Who cares? Scowling, he sat at the table and picked up the Sunday paper. Mrs. Martinson gave him a worried glance, then turned back to the stove. I'm making blueberry pancakes this morning, she told Dina. How many do you want? Dina was starting on her second stack when she heard a knock at the back door. Jade hurried in without waiting for anyone to open it. She was wearing a powder blue wool skirt and turtleneck under a navy jacket with stockings and navy pumps. Dina had never seen her dressed that way before. Good morning, Jade, said Mrs. Martinson. Don't you look so nice, so grown up? Thanks, Jade replied, beaming. Hi, Dina. Ready to go to that party with me? Party? Dina asked, not understanding. You know, Jade said, flashing her a meaningful glance. That business party my mom is giving that I said we'd help her with? Oh, that party, Dina exclaimed, catching on. I totally forgot. That's obvious, said Jade, motioning to Dina's bathrobe. Can I help Jade with her mom's party? Dina asked her mother. I suppose so, Mrs. Martinson replied. Have you finished all your homework? Most of it, Dina replied. She jumped up, leaving the pancakes, and hurried up to her room. What's up? She asked Jade, closing her bedroom door. I've figured out how we can find out what's going on with Linda Morrison, Jade announced in a whisper. Oh no, protested Dina. Jade, I'm not. Relax, Jade instructed. I'll explain it all on the way. Just change your clothes. What do you have that looks really businessy? Dina stared into her open closet, then pulled out a maroon A-line dress that her mother had bought her the year before. Dina never wore it because it made her look too much like her mother. How's this? She asked. Perfect, Jade replied. We'll just dress it up with a scarf. While Dina pulled on the dress, Jade began rummaging through Dina's dresser. She pulled out a black and gold striped scarf and knotted it at Dina's throat. Come on, she said. I've only got my mom's car till 1. A few moments later, Dina slid in beside Jade in the front seat of the Chevy. Now will you tell me what's going on? Here's the deal, said Jade. I've figured out a way we can ask questions and snoop around without Linda Morrison suspecting anything. I borrowed some wigs from my mom's beauty shop, so Linda won't recognize us. But how are we going to get into her house? I already took care of that, Jade replied, her eyes lighting up excitedly. First, I drove by her house this morning. Guess what I saw? A big for sale by owner sign in front. Yes, so what? Dina demanded. She always had trouble following these schemes of Jade's. So I went home and called her, Jade continued impatiently. I told her I'm a real estate agent and that I've sold a lot of homes in her area. I told her I was sure I could find a buyer. And she believed you. What do you think? Jade replied. I know how real estate people talk. My aunt has been selling houses for years. Anyway, I told her my associate and I would be over later this morning to examine her property. Dina remained silent for a moment. Jade, even with wigs and these dreadful clothes, Linda Morrison is going to recognize us. She hasn't seen us in a year, Jade argued. Besides, when I get through making us up, our own mothers won't know us. I hope you're right. I know I am. Anyway, the important thing is to get in there and find out what's going on. She pulled the car into a gas station and parked by the curb. Come on, she urged, pulling a big shopping bag out of the back seat. Dina followed Jade into the ladies' room. Jade had a shoulder-length auburn wig for Dina and a cap of curly black hair for herself. She pulled out a makeup kit and got to work. A few minutes later, Dina stared at a stranger in the mirror. Wow, she declared, admiring herself. I look at least 20 years old. I told you, Jade replied. There's no way Linda Morrison will remember who we are. Dina turned to Jade's reflection. Jade looked glamorous with the dark curly hair and her sparkling green eyes and creamy white perfect skin. She turned around once in front of the mirror, then folded up the bags. Remember, Jade instructed as they walked back to the car, keep your eyes and ears open and let me do most of the talking. The one-story wooden house was small. It sat on a tiny lot, squeezed between two other similar houses. As they stood on the front porch, Dina felt her heart begin to pound. She swallowed hard, her mouth dry. What if Jade were wrong? What if Linda Morrison did recognize them? She had tried to run them down last night. What would she do if she had Jade and Dina trapped in her house? I've changed my mind, Dina thought. I want to get out of here. Jade always has the craziest plans. Why do I always go along with them? Why do I always get suckered in? This was a major mistake. I want to leave. Fast. But before she could tell Jade, the front door opened. Linda Morrison peered out at them. She's gained a lot of weight since the last time we saw her, Dina realized. Morrison's blonde hair had dark roots now and was pulled back into a ponytail. Her face seemed puffy, older. Yes, she asked, her voice flat and unfriendly. Ms. Morrison? Jade began in a businesslike voice. I'm Louise Smith, and this is my associate, Darlene Mathers. I called this morning about representing your property. Oh, yeah, right, Morrison replied. Come on in. Dina held back for a second, her heart pounding. Then she followed Jade into the house. The small living room smelled of bacon. Dina could see the remains of breakfast on a small table against the far wall. Papers and magazines were piled on every surface. Dina could see a thick layer of dust on the windowsills. Not much of a housekeeper, Dina thought. Just push some of that stuff on the floor and sit down, Morrison instructed. I haven't had a chance to straighten up lately. This is a good-sized room, Jade commented, studying the cluttered living room. We can get someone to come in and clean up. Whatever, Morrison replied with a shrug. Jade pulled out a notebook and pen. Now, I'll need some information from you before I can list the property, she said. First of all, how long have you had the for sale sign up? A couple of days, the woman replied. But you're the first person who's noticed it. It's been my experience that sales by the owner don't attract very many buyers, Jade said smoothly. By dealing with my agency, you'll reach a lot more people. I'll place advertising, have an open house. Morrison shook her head. I don't want a lot of strangers coming through here. Fine, Jade replied quickly, making a note on her pad. We'll show up by appointment only then. Dina gazed at Jade. Where did her friend learn all these real estate terms? She sounded so professional, Dina started to relax. When are you planning to move out? Jade continued. As soon as possible, Linda Morrison answered. Tomorrow, if I could. I see, said Jade. And can you tell me why you're in such a hurry? What business is that of yours? Morrison snapped. She narrowed her eyes at Jade. Just wondering, Jade said smoothly. In case I would need to reach you out of town? Is that right? Morrison said. By the way, you haven't showed me your business card yet. My business card? Jade's confident expression faded. Are you sure I didn't give it to you? Positive, Linda Morrison answered sharply, holding out her hand. I really must insist on seeing it. Oh, wow, Dina thought, her heart sinking to her knees. We're dead. Chapter 11. Linda Morrison crossed her arms over her chest. I'm waiting, she said coldly. No problem, Jade replied. She opened her purse and began to rummage through it. It's here somewhere, she murmured. Now what? Dina asked herself. What do we do? Jade can't stall her forever, pretending to look for a business card. She turned her eyes to the front door. Should we just make a run for it? When Dina glanced back, she found Jade smiling. Here it is, she declared. She pulled a small white card from the bag and handed it to Linda Morrison. Morrison held it close, staring at it suspiciously. Louise Smith, real estate, she read. Okay. Dina gaped at the card and then at her friend. Where had Jade found the business card? Jade reached out for the card, but Linda held on to it. Now, my associate and I will need to take some measurements in here before we can list the house. Don't let us disturb you, Jade said with a smile. Go ahead, Linda Morrison told her. I've got some things to do in the back of the house anyway. Come on, Darlene, said Jade. Dina sat there, still dazed, waiting for her heart to stop thundering. I said, come on, Darlene, Jade repeated. Oh, right, Dina said, forcing herself to snap out of it. Jade pulled out a metal tape measure and began to measure the walls. Linda Morrison disappeared into the back. As soon as she was gone, Dina grabbed her friend's wrist. Where did you get that business card? She whispered. It's my aunt's, Jade explained. No problem. She glanced toward the hallway. We don't have much time, she whispered. There's got to be something here that will help us out. Why don't you check in that pile of stuff on the table? I'll go through the desk. Feeling like a burglar, Dina began to sort through a stack of papers on the edge of the coffee table. There were old phone bills, supermarket coupons, advertisements for takeout pizza, and a half-finished crossword puzzle. Nothing to explain why Linda Morrison could have been at the Farberson house the night before. At the bottom of the pile, she found a notepad filled with doodles and diagrams. Dina was flipping through the pages when she heard Jade gasp. I've found something, she whispered excitedly. Huh? What? Look at this, from the bottom desk drawer. Jade held up a keychain. 2 house keys, she announced, and the keychain is labeled Farberson. What do you have there? Jade asked. Just some drawings, said Dina. I don't know what they... That's Farberson's house, Jade cried. Look at the address. Dina lowered her eyes to the bottom of the page. To her surprise, Jade was right. 884 Fear Street. She was holding a crude diagram of Farberson's house. The downstairs was drawn in one square. It showed the kitchen and dining room and living room. The living room where they had found Mrs. Farberson's body a year ago. The upstairs was drawn in the second square. It showed 4 bedrooms. Dina recognized the bedroom where they had hidden in a tiny closet on that terrifying night. Why do you suppose she has this? Dina whispered. I don't know, Jade replied with a shrug, but it's proof. Proof that she's still interested in the Farberson house, and proof that she could have been the one who chased us. Not enough proof, Dina replied. I'd like to take a look at her car. Good idea, Jade whispered. I'll ask her if we can get into the garage, and then... Her words were cut off by a door banging open. Her heart pounding in alarm, Dina turned to the hall. All right, girls, Linda Morrison snapped. She stood in the doorway. That's enough. I remember who you two are. So, why don't we just cut to the chase? Chapter 12. Dina gasped in shock, but Jade recovered quickly. Excuse me? She replied. You heard me, Linda Morrison said softly. Her eyes narrowed at Jade. I said I remember who you are. What are you doing here in my house? I'm Louise Smith, Jade insisted, and this is... But Dina could see that the woman wasn't buying Jade's lies. Drop it, Linda Morrison snapped, holding the business card Jade had given her. I just called the real estate office, and they said Louise Smith is on vacation. You're the 2 girls who messed in Stanley's problems last year. Now, what are you doing here? Why are you snooping around? Dina's legs began to tremble. She could feel every muscle in her body tightening in fear. But Jade coolly gazed back at the woman. I might ask you a few questions, Jade said. For example, why have you been making those phone calls to us? Phone calls? Morrison asked, confused. What are you talking about? Don't pretend you don't know about them, Jade replied sharply. Why did you try to run us over last night? Run you over? Morrison asked. Then that was you last night? You knew who it was, Jade accused. What's going on? Dina stared at her friend in admiration. The Morrison woman had caught them lying, but Jade had turned it around and put Morrison on the spot. I'm sorry, I was only trying to find out who you were, the woman said, her voice shaking. Do you expect us to believe that? Jade demanded. It's the truth, Morrison insisted. When I saw your car out by the curb, I got scared to death. If you were so scared, Dina demanded, why did you deliberately try to run down Jade and Chuck? I couldn't see anything, Morrison explained. I was using a borrowed car, and I couldn't figure out how to turn on the headlights. Yeah, right, Dina thought sarcastically. That's why she rammed her car 3 times. You must think we're morons. Who'd believe that story? But to Dina's surprise, the woman's expression changed. Her features crumpled, and tears began to appear in her pale blue eyes. I'm really sorry, she sniffled. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone, or even scare you. I was just trying to protect myself. From what? Jade asked, exasperated. And how could making scary phone calls to us protect you? I didn't make any calls, Morrison insisted. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. I'm sorry if you were scared, but you don't know how I felt. I've been so stressed out, so frightened, for months. Why? Asked Jade. It's him, Morrison replied heatedly. Stanley. I know he's in prison, but I'm terrified that he'll get out and come after me. He blamed me for everything. How could he get out? Dina cried, finally finding her voice. He was sentenced to life, right? Stanley is much more clever than you can imagine, Morrison sobbed. He and his lawyer have been working on an appeal. Something to do with a legal mistake. If he wins his appeal, he could be out this month. No, Dina gasped. There must be some mistake, Ms. Morrison. Call me Linda, the older woman said. She shook her head. I'm so sorry to break the news to you, girls. I know you must find it frightening, too. But he killed his wife, Dina cried. I can't believe they just let him go free. It happens all the time, Linda replied bitterly. If Stanley can prove that the police didn't follow the law perfectly, he can get out. The month is almost over, Dina said thoughtfully. Could he be out already? If Farberson is out, it would explain the nasty phone calls, Dina thought. And the drawing of the chainsaw. It would explain everything. No, he's not out yet, Linda assured them. My lawyer promised to let me know when it happens. Besides, the minute he's free, Stanley will come after me. I know he will. I'm still confused about something, Jade said. What were you doing at his house on Fear Street last night? For a moment, the older woman didn't answer. I suppose I might as well tell you, she said finally. You know that Stanley stole a lot of money from his restaurant before he murdered his wife. Yeah, we remember, Jade said. Well, before Stanley was arrested, he told me he had hid it somewhere in the house. He wanted me to put it somewhere safe. So what did you do? Jade demanded. I tried to find it, Linda replied, but I couldn't, she sighed. Stanley didn't believe me. He accused me of stealing it. He phoned me from prison a few weeks ago. He said that if I didn't come up with the money by the time he gets out, he'll kill me. So you've been searching the house for the money, Dina guessed. I've looked everywhere, Linda replied, her eyes again brimming with tears. That's all I've been doing for weeks, but I can't find it, and I think I know why. Why? Jade asked. Someone else must have taken it, Linda said. Someone else who knew it was there. Her expression changed. She glared at Jade, then at Dina. I just figured it out, Linda Morrison exclaimed. Oh man, I've been so stupid. But I just figured it out. You took the money, didn't you? The woman moved quickly to block the front doorway. I'm right, aren't I? She cried, studying them both. You took the money. Dina was about to protest, but Jade, as usual, spoke first. Yeah, you're right. We took it all, Jade confessed. Chapter 13. Dina gasped. What was Jade saying? Had she lost her mind? We took the money, Jade repeated. Then we flapped our arms and flew to the moon. Linda Morrison stared hard at Jade. What are you saying? I'm saying that's crazy, Jade told her. Dina and I didn't know about any hidden money. That's a good story, Linda replied sharply, but I know different. I know that the night Stanley caught you last year, you were searching his house. What else could you have been looking for? We were looking for papers, Jade replied. Looking for some kind of proof that Farberson was guilty. Dina's brother Chuck had been accused. We were trying to find something that would prove Chuck was innocent. Morrison studied them. Why should I believe you? She demanded. All I know is the money is gone, and Stanley will blame me. Well, we didn't know about it, and we didn't take it, Jade insisted. Linda blew her nose and sighed, and now her mood seemed to change again. I suppose I have no choice but to believe you, she said. Maybe Farberson lied about hiding the money, Dina offered. I thought of that, Linda told her. But if so, why is he threatening me? In any case, I give up. I'm not looking for it any more. Last night was my last attempt. What are you going to tell Farberson? Jade asked. Nothing, said Linda. I'm too afraid to even think about talking to him again. I've decided to move someplace far from here, where he can never find me. That's why my house is up for sale. As a matter of fact, I was starting to pack when you called this morning. Well, good luck, Dina said, not knowing what else to say. Thanks, Linda replied, and good luck to you girls, too. She narrowed her eyes at them. If Stanley gets out, you may need it. Dina spent the rest of the afternoon working on her algebra and a history paper. She kept listening for Chuck to come home, but there was no sign of him. Jade called at 6. Her mom and sister had gone to visit Jade's aunt. She invited Dina over for pizza. Thanks for getting me out of the house, Dina said when Jade opened the door. It's a nightmare there. My parents are so mad at Chuck. Good thing he's over here then, Jade said, gesturing toward the sofa. Chuck! Cried Dina. Do Mom and Dad know you're here? Chuck gave her a sour scowl that told her he was sick of talking about the whole situation. As far as I'm concerned, he said, they don't need to know anything about me. Ever. Dina decided to keep her mouth shut. She sat down in one of the armchairs across from Chuck. From the 2 pizza crusts on a paper plate, she could see that he had already had a head start on dinner. Have a root beer, Jade offered, handing Dina a glass. So, Jade was just telling me about your big adventure this afternoon, Chuck said, pulling another slice from the carton. Dina snickered. You should have seen Jade with short, curly black hair. I'll bet she looked great, Chuck gushed, gazing at Jade admiringly. I told him what Linda said about the money, Jade said. I told him she thinks the money isn't there anymore. But Chuck says... I think she's lying, Chuck interrupted. Why would she lie? Dina asked. Because she doesn't want anyone else to get it, Chuck replied impatiently. The Morrison woman may be going away, but I'll bet she still wants to get her hands on the money. Chuck could be right, Jade said thoughtfully. Think about it. Remember how she kept saying over and over that the money was gone? That's because it is gone, Dina exclaimed. No, it's because she didn't want us to find it, Jade declared. She told you about the money to see if you girls knew anything about it, Chuck explained. Then, when she found out you didn't, she wanted you to think it wasn't in the house after all. Well, maybe you're right, Dina agreed, but so what? So, I think that money is ours, Chuck exclaimed, grinning. Chuck, Dina gasped, you don't mean... I don't know how much there is, he continued, ignoring her, but it will go a long way toward getting me started in Los Angeles. You can't take that money, Dina protested. Why not? Chuck replied, still grinning. We deserve it after everything we went through last year. In a way, you could say we earned it. Jade, talk him out of it, Dina pleaded. I think I agree with Chuck, Jade confessed. I mean, It's not like we're robbing a bank or anything. The money is already there and no one knows it's there. And we did go through a lot because of Farberson. I mean, Chuck ended up in jail and you and I nearly got killed. But it's illegal money, Dina protested. Farberson stole it. The insurance company has probably paid everyone by now, Chuck said, finishing his third slice and dropping the crust onto his paper plate. Don't be such a wimp, Dina. It's free money, and it can be ours. For a moment, Dina just stared at her brother. How could Chuck even be thinking of trying to find that money? Jade is nearly as bad, Dina decided. How could she encourage him? So, what do you say? Chuck asked, jumping up. How about a little treasure hunt? You mean tonight? Jade cried, surprised. The sooner the better, Chuck told them. I don't know if I'm ready to go back there, Jade said, biting her lower lip. Especially after last night? Ignoring them, Chuck made his way to the front entryway. Chuck, come back, Jade called. We have to talk about this some more. I don't need your permission, Chuck called back. I don't even need your help. He pulled open the front door. Chuck, no, Dina pleaded. Last chance to come with me, Chuck announced. He stepped out into the dark. Dina and Jade followed him onto the porch. Jade, you've got to stop him, Dina pleaded. I'm trying, Jade said. She ran down the sidewalk after Chuck, screaming his name over and over. Chuck, please stop. Listen to me, Chuck. Chuck? Jade grabbed his shirt and he struggled, pushing her aside. No, don't, she wailed. Dina started after them, but she stopped when she saw someone standing under the streetlight at the curb. His face was buried in shadows, but Dina could see that he was tall and broad, dressed in black. Farberson? She opened her mouth to call to Jade and Chuck. Too late. The man burst out from behind a light post. He grabbed Chuck. They wrestled for a moment. Jade uttered a frightened scream as the man wrapped Chuck in a chokehold. Dina watched Chuck sink to his knees, his arms flailing wildly, helplessly, as the man, grunting and cursing, strangled him.